but very similar looking shape of flower. It's not related, but it also is a red flower. Again, similar shape, but a good attractor of hummingbirds. Swamp milkweed, another Asclepias that you can put in if you've got some moist soil. Really deer resistant, really beautiful flower, also called rose milkweed, I think. So you can kind of see really a great ornamental plant as well. There are a lot of ornamental cultivars out there. So again, try to buy wild seed type for swamp milkweed. Hoot blossom, we hope to have it available as well. Sneezeweed is another one that if you have a little bit of keep a little moisture, you can it'll thrive for you. It blooms late in the season. Unlike the name suggests, this is not a plant that is bad for you if you have seasonal allergies. There's a lot of mistaken opinion out there that goldenrod and plants like sneezeweed, despite the name, I mean, it's how it got its name. All of these plants, you know, these are the pollen is big and heavy. It is not carried by the wind; it's carried by bees. It's plants like ragweed where the pollen is, you know, super light and airborne, travels through, and that's what gets into our noses, and that's what produces allergies. So don't worry about the allergies with native plants. It's more like the weeds that you want to, ragweed especially, that you want to weed out. Okay, but sneezeweed is just a beautiful plant. Unfortunate name. And plants that fix nitrogen: partridge pea, purple and white prairie clover, baptisia, wild indigo, Canada milkvetch, buckbean. These are all plants that Hoot Blossom is trying out this year. We've done some baptisias in the past. They're beautiful, but they take a long time to grow. So if you really want to put one in the ground this year and want to buy it from us, they're going to be pretty small. We're going to start a bunch to be able to sell in the upcoming years. But baptisia is just a wonderful plant to have around. There's a lot of cultivated varieties. We're looking here at on the left is pale purple prairie clover. In the middle is buckbean, and on the right is Canada milkvetch. So, you know, they kind of look like lupins. Really beautiful plants. The nitrogen fixers often are. Lupin is a nitrogen fixer too, but it's very hard to plant as a transplant in my experience. So we're not growing it for sale this year. But these are just beautiful plants. So we're hoping that these work well for us. And this one is the wild indigo, the baptisia. It's a Wisconsin native, really beautiful flower. We're starting them, and hopefully they'll be available. We could be surprised maybe this year, but hopefully next year. And just a shout out to grasses and sedges. Hoot Blossom doesn't grow them, but you know, as far as production for wildlife, they're comparatively unsung for the home landscape. But they produce pollen. They're a pollen source, so important for insects as well. June grass, Pennsylvania sedge, little bluestem, prairie dropseed. There's more out there. Pennsylvania sedge is a really great one for shady areas as well as sunny. It likes the more kind of woodland mixed sun. One thing you could do is if you plant a bunch of young plants, you could spread seed of these sedges or grass around it so that they can start to grow up amongst the plants and give it more of a wild look. I'd recommend stomping the seed into the ground so you have good seed to soil contact. One thing that I didn't mention, if you want to start from seed, a lot of wild seed needs a stratification period. So stratification is like a cold, wet period that breaks the dormancy inside the seed. So Hoot Blossom we're sowing all of our trays of wildflowers this time of year. We actually started in January, early January. We actually did a couple in December, and then we keep them outside. So the reason we do that is so they go through that cold period outdoors, and that breaks the dormancy of the plant. So grasses and sedges don't require that. So you could order grass and sedge seed from Prairie Nursery or Prairie Moon Nursery or one of those, and you could sow that this spring and get those growing right away. On the left is Pennsylvania sedge. It's found on the island. And then on the right is little blue stem, also found on the island. So, okay. It's 11:03, and that was a lot of information. I'm looking to get to, how can I see you all? I don't have my tech support here with me. So any questions? Yeah.
Russell, if you go to the top of your screen, you should be able to unshare.
Okay, unshare. Oh.
It might be under view options.
Can you see where I am?
No.
Go to the top right for view.
It says view.
Oh, stop share.
Ah,
there it is. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so that was a lot of information really quickly, but if you have, I hope it was useful, and I hope it generated some thoughts and ideas. In the chat, you could type a question if you have one, or just go ahead and ask it out loud here.
Okay, Russell, this is Judy Yamamoto. Do you know if, or does anybody in the group know if the wild indigo can be used for dyeing?
That's a great question. I believe that the answer is yes. I believe it is used as a natural dye, that was a natural dye. I remember learning, someone might know more about it, but I do believe that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's a few wild indigos, and I don't know if one of them is better for dyeing or, but you could, if you look at the plant species we have available in the chat, there's 4 varieties. Maybe one of them is preferred for that.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question in the chat from Ellie Dunham. What's the policy about getting rid of garlic mustard? Any comments about that? Lots of patience and lots of work. I'm not an expert on that. I'd direct you to Door County Invasive Species Team. I think DCIST they're called. Yeah, I know that they are using herbicides a lot of the time to get rid of them. I think the Land Trust uses herbicides as well.
Russell, may I just interject a promo?
Yeah.
Anybody who's here who's interested in being part of our garden tour next summer, the Gathering Ground did its first annual garden tour last year, and a few participants are here in the chat today. And it was wonderfully received and a lot of fun. And so if any of you would like to be a host garden, we would love to have you offer your space for us to come and look at.
Yeah, that's great.
Do you have a date, Russell?
Sandra may have a date.
We have talked about, we haven't shorted up, but we've talked about July 4th weekend, that first weekend in July. So that's not set in stone, but that's what we're discussing. And I'll just also say that so Hoot Blossom really wants to support the pollinator plantings that are happening at Art and Nature Center and at Gathering Ground beginning this year. So we're doing, for all the plants that are pre-ordered, we're donating a native plug to both Gathering Ground and, Gathering Ground and Art and Nature Center. So if you buy 5 wildflowers, 5 plugs go to Art and Nature Center and 5 go to Gathering Ground. So we want to, really have a lot of the wildflower planting showcased in those 2 places. And so just know that you can support what they're doing that way.
And how do we find out about pre-ordering and when does it start?
Yeah, so if you go in the chat at the very top, 2021 Hoot Blossom native plants, if you download that, and that is, it doesn't have pictures, but it has all the species that we have available, and you can write in there your name and how many you want of each, and pre-order is open. So
Great.
yeah, and we'll do pre-orders until Memorial Day weekend. But the sooner the better, because we are a small nursery, only do so much.
Russell, in regard to roadside cutting, it seems that along my road, all of a sudden wonderful things are growing in the ditch or along the road, and they come along and trim everything down. Has it been discussed with the village to discontinue that? I realize it's important perhaps because of deer running into the road, but gosh, it would be nice to let it grow.
That's a really interesting comment. I don't know the policy, and I don't know that it's ever been discussed.
Oh, perhaps it could be.
Perhaps it could be. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a
I
case.
did talk to Lee Baxter, who was mowing last year, about not mowing an area where I was trying to get wildflowers started. And he said, as long as they're short, they just don't want trees or bushes. But you still might want to talk to them to especially avoid your area.
It would be nice if they didn't cut. It really would be. It's important, actually. Okay.
Well, it's for visibility, just in general, for driving from driveways and stuff like that.
Well, and I think it's state law that you have to keep it cut back so far.
That could be, yeah.
Then we need to talk to our legislators. So.
We should do some research first, however, I think.
Yeah, think so, Judy? Yep.
And
That's,
but
Yeah, sorry.
that's a good point of where you can gather some interesting specimens. So if you find, I see along, Indian Point, I just see we walk that most often. So